Hello and welcome back to the Gaming Tech channel, everybody. We're live on YouTube and Twitch, and we're back with Forza Horizon 6. So this is going to be your second session of the day. Well, technically it'll be the third session because the first session we had to start over because our streaming PC shut down. So here we are, back at it again. And as you can probably tell from the background, it's nighttime now. So we are going to continue with the Gallardo we were playing with earlier. So we tried multiple setups on this car. We tried all-wheel drive with a centrifugal supercharger. And then we tried rear-wheel drive with no supercharger. And that was all in A class. And then we decided to put this car in S1 class. And we decided to twin turbo it with all-wheel drive again. But we are going to make some changes to the car one more time before we switch over to a different vehicle. So this is what the stats look like right now. Pretty good power numbers. The weight's pretty good, but I want to make it better. And honestly, I'm thinking we should ditch the all-wheel drive system and go back to rear-wheel drive. So a rear-wheel drive car in S1 is going to be a little tricky, but if you can get the setup right, it should be pretty fun overall. Because with the extra power and all that, we were running into some understeer again. So maybe let's try making a rear-wheel drive one more time. By the way, the best time around the Legend Island circuit was 1:29 with the current setup with the all-wheel drive and twin turbos in S1 class. So that's the time to beat. So right now we have 821 horsepower and 555 foot-pounds of torque with the stock engine. And we have made the turbos bigger and added a cams plus exhaust and intake. So let's see if we could swap out the V10 for a V12 here. And get more horsepower. Of course, while keeping the car in S1 class. So 821 and 555. That's the number to beat. Doesn't look like it's going to be possible with this V12, but we'll try anyway. So with this V12, we'll put down more torque. It will produce more torque despite being naturally aspirated, but we're gonna have a little bit less horsepower. I don't know if I like that. What about the racing V12? So with the racing V12, we will have more horsepower, but a lot less torque. So maybe staying with the stock engine was our best option. Well, there's one more engine that I want to test out, which is the newer 5.2 V10. Alright, right off the bat, with just twin turbos on the newer 5.2 V10, we're making a little bit more torque and a little bit less horsepower to our older V10 with a lot more mods. So the newer V10 responds to mods much better. Alright, this is going to be our new setup. We're replacing the older V10 for a newer V10 from the Hurricane or the R8 GT. And we're going with the rear-wheel drive setup. Plus, we're going to have much better power to weight ratio. Let me just double check the transmission here. I'm going to add the 10 speed back in. All right. Changing the setup one more time. So we have more grip, better power to weight ratio. So the car is going to be heavier, but we're still going to have better power to weight ratio because we're making more power now. Plus more weight should help with the rear-wheel drive setup. So let's see how this goes. So we have more power, more weight, more downforce, and less drivetrain loss. We're going to do a lap around the Legend Island circuit just to test out the car, and then we'll do some online racing. Wow, push down the power so well for a rear-wheel drive setup. I'm impressed. We just need to make the gearing a little longer. Look at that, 0 to 60, 2.6 with a rear-wheel drive setup? Are you kidding me? That's really good. Those are some good numbers. This car just hooks and books. You really can't tell that this car is rear-wheel drive. We got the handling advantage of the rear-wheel drive, while it puts down the power like it's an all-wheel drive, which is amazing. I mean, after all, this car is a mid-engine car. Wow, I'm flat out on that corner over there. This has to be the best setup so far. $129? Are you serious? That's literally the time you put down with the all-wheel drive setup. With the older V10. The factory V10. The car feels dialed in now. It's the best it has felt so far. $129.1. That's great. Alright, we're ready for some online racing now. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the final setup for this car. We don't need to change it any further. Let's do a street race. S1. Let's go. Hey, what's up? Thanks for joining. Alright, we're going to be joining this event, or this championship at the last event. This Gallardo has to be the most powerful S1 car. I mean, just look at those numbers. It's great. Is it more powerful than the M8? Yup. Literally more powerful than any other S1 car. That's crazy. I love how this thing launches. There is literally no drama. It just hooks and goes. Not a lot of rear-wheel drive cars can do that. Racing against Camaros and Ferrari and the TVR. Bro, move out of the way. Not bad. Did pretty well. We'll do a few more races with this car. And then we'll build something else. For a 3,700-pound car, it moves. I have no idea why that Mustang started doing donuts in the middle of the race, but whatever. And that person quit. Okay. BRB, everybody. And I am back. Alright, that was some decent racing. And I think we should move on from this car now. Move on to a different build. This has been a solid build. And I think we have finally dialed it in. So, what car should we pick next? Should we build something that's pretty common and not very expensive? Because I feel like those cars are the most fun to build. Just like your basic cars. Alright, you know what? Let's go buy a car. Let's buy something cool.
Welcome back, X.
Something different. Wait, now we're in auto show. Okay, let's see. How about some D and C class cars? Alright, let's build this fox body. This hatchback fox body. I like the factory color, the factory red. Looks cool. 84,000? You kidding me? It's one expensive fox body. Nothing special, but it's nice. Your classic fox body interior. Let's see what that 5-liter sounds like. Alright, we're gonna take this fox body straight to the quarter-mile strip. My guess is that it's probably going to run a 14.2. 14.2 in the quarter. Let's see if our guess is correct.
Arrived at your destination.
A 15.5? Wow. That's low. I don't know why I expected this car to be a little faster. Yeah, the initial launch is kind of slow. And for some reason, it doesn't sound like a Mustang 5-liter engine. Maybe we need an exhaust on it. Alright, let's just take it straight to our auto show, our garage, and start modifying it. Okay, right off the bat, what kind of power is it making? 240 horsepower? 235, okay. 280 foot-pounds of torque. So the power figures are alright for this old 5-liter overhead valve engine. Not bad. I believe the regular 5-liter makes a little less horsepower. This is the SVT Cobra R. And I think the Cobra R had a different intake manifold. So it made like a little more horsepower than the regular engine. So first thing we're going to change on this Fox body is the exhaust. Because the factory exhaust does not sound like a Fox body at all. This is more like it, the street exhaust. This sounds like LS. This sounds the best in my opinion. Don't like this. This sounds nice, but it doesn't really sound like a Mustang. This sounds more like Flow Masters. Yeah, we're gonna go with the street exhaust. That sounds like a true Fox body. Even the idle. Perfect. And let's drop a bigger cam in this thing so it can make more horsepower. Perfect. A better clutch. We don't need a racing transmission, aka the auto. We're just gonna go with the sport transmission so we can unlock the final drive, so we can adjust the differential ratio. And let's go with a lighter drive shaft, why not, and a racing diff. Oh yeah, while we're at it, let's just upgrade the intake as well. So we need to upgrade those rear tires because 245s are not going to be enough to put the power down. Let's go with 295s for now. For now only. We can change that later. I mean, as we add more power to this box body, we'll upgrade those rear tires as well. So for now, 285s is plenty. And we don't need to do anything else just yet. Yeah, we're okay for now. Little bit of weight reduction. I mean, that won't hurt. Reinforce the chassis a little. I guess I could use that. Alright, this is a pretty standard setup. I feel like most people with Fox bodies would probably do all these things when they get the car. So I'm gonna call this the stage 1 setup. A little bit lighter, a little bit faster, a little bit more grip. And now let's take it back to the quarter mile. Can we do that 14.2 that I was hoping for? I think so. That sounds like a proper Fox body now. Alright, back to the strip again. Alright, we need to fix that launch. We need to go for a shorter final drive. So right now, as it sits, 0 to 60 is 5.3. So we just got that down to 5.2 with a final drive of 4.4.
You've arrived at your
14.2! Nice! Right on the money there. 14.2. Perfect. That's exactly what we were hoping for. Oh, dude, the brakes suck. Is there any way we can upgrade those brakes? I'm really happy about that quarter mile time. 14.2 is great. For 300 horsepower and not a whole lot of weight, I mean, that's decent. So we just need to put on some better brakes. I don't know how we're gonna do that because the car will end up in B class then. Maybe we'll have to remove a few things. What could we remove here? The chassis reinforcement? Yeah. Let's get rid of that. A lighter flywheel? I mean, why not? So we're even lighter than before. The car felt a lot better with the chassis reinforcement, but I think we can get around that if we add the anti-sway bars, the anti-roll bars. It's not gonna be the same thing, but it'll, you know, help with a little bit of that stability, a little bit of that body roll. And now we're in B class again, so we need to remove this flywheel. And maybe drop down the car a little. Actually, can we put on some better tires on the front? I mean, wider tires. No, that's not gonna work. That's not going to work. Unless I remove the drive shaft. I mean, go back to the factory one. I can't really remove it. Alright, this is a tricky situation. Do I want a lighter drive shaft or a lighter flywheel? They're both rotational mass items, so... Or we could just, you know, go with the sport. Race driveline and a sport flywheel. We can do that. Much better now with the anti-roll bars. There's barely any body roll. And the chassis feels a little more rigid. Not as rigid as it did with the reinforcement, but it's decent. Yeah, the front end grip is just not there. Alright, it's not really meant for this time attack. We'll take it back to the quarter mile strip. Now that the car is a slightly lighter, plus I don't know if it's going to be a little worse when it comes to the quarter mile because we have taken out the chassis reinforcement. But at the same time, it's a bit lighter, so... Can we do that 14.2 again? I feel like it's gonna be a little slower. Maybe 14.3?
Arrived at your
14.0! Wow. That's great. I thought we were gonna be a little slower because we removed the chassis reinforcement, but we're faster because the car is lighter and we have the anti-roll bars. Plus the brakes also made the car lighter. So it's actually better now. Plus the car actually stops. So it's a pretty good C-class setup that we got going on. Can we break into the 13s? I mean, we were pretty close there. 14.0. Can we do a 13.9? This might be a 13.9.
You've arrived at
13.8? Wow. That's good. That's some good stuff. Alright, let me air down the rear tires a little more. Right about there. Can we do a 13.7? This might be a 13.7.
You've arrived at your
Oh,
destination.
13.9. A little slower. So this time we launched the car at 3,000. Let me try to launch it at 4,000.
You've arrived at your destination.
Alright, we were getting the best launch with 28 psi, so let's go back to 28. Best launch plus best top end speed. Wait, what if I don't use the launch control? What if I just mash the throttle? Oh, that's not gonna work. What about the Forza launch control? Alright, how about this? We'll try the Forza launch control this time.
You've arrived at your destination.
So it looks like with the current setup, the best we can do is a 13.8, which is not bad. Let's try to do a street race with this car. I'm pretty sure it's gonna suck. Because this is not really for street racing. This is more for drag racing. But let's just try anyway. It's gonna be a little tough to find a C-class race. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're gonna find a C-class race here. That's too bad. How about we try to do some spec racing? Of course, we're gonna have to use whatever car Forza provides us with, but it should be fun. And it's gonna be a Ford Fiesta. I mean, it's a Ford. Everyone's gonna have the same car, so it all just comes down to the skill now. Not bad. That wall slowdown really messed us up. I mean, we got to finish the race, so that's all right. Alright, now let's try some toge racing. That's also fun. Where did it go? Right here. B class, okay. Let's see. I'm gonna pick my best B class car. Well, by best I mean the best for toge racing. And that has to be the Integra Type R. Front wheel drive. Not a whole lot of power, but decent amount of grip. And it's perfect for going downhill. NSX versus Integra.
Aspiring event organizer? Choose the car class and drivetrain for the 3-event championship and get to drifting. Highest points over a single lap wins.
Alright, this is gonna be your first time doing an online drift race. Not bad for a first run. Alright, time to drink some water. I'll be right back. And I'm back just in time. We still got 30 seconds to pick our car. And we honestly have so many A-class builds that I don't even know what to pick. Alright, we're gonna go with the SLC-43. We built this a few days ago. A couple days ago, I believe. It's a great little car, great build. What was that? Alright, that was some fun racing. Before we call it a night, let's run this SLC-43 down the quarter mile strip. This no longer has a V6 it came with. We changed it to a V8 twin turbo. So let's see what it can do on the quarter. My guess is 10-3.
Arrived at your destination.
11-1. Honestly, if we can get the car to launch right, we can probably be in 10s. Alright, let's try to be in 10s here instead of 11-1. Alright, let's launch in second gear.
You've arrived at your destination.
That's not gonna work. I really thought this car would be intense. Let me just lower the air pressure for the tires, for the rear tires, and we'll do one more run.
You've arrived at your destination.
Really? Alright, I'm gonna use the Forza launch control one more time. Maybe we'll get a better time, because we are running less tire pressure.
Arrived at your destination.
11-0. So we're pretty close to being in 10s here. Alright, let's just drop down the air pressure all the way. And for the ride height, let's drop it down on the rear. Or actually on the front. No, that's not gonna work. We'd have to drop it down from the rear. Yep.
arrived at your destination.
11-0. We're so close to being in the 10s here. Here's the problem. The first gear is gear too short. What if you make it longer? And make the second longer as well. Would that help? Alright, let's increase the aero in the rear. I am really trying to be in the 10s here.
Arrived at your
11-0
destination.
again. Are you kidding me? Alright, we better be in 10s now.
Arrived at your
10-9,
destination.
finally! We did it! We did it! I'm sure this car can be a lot faster if it had all-wheel drive, but for this setup, for a rear-wheel drive setup in a small little chassis with so much torque, I think it did pretty well there. So that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.